Welcome back to Transaction Care, the #1 real estate show on the market. My name is Lillian Hernandez, your resident care coordinator. And in this video, as you see from the title of it, I will be talking about how to organize your files. If you haven't already, go check out the video I made about the programs I use because that will be very helpful in terms of understanding how things go down within a transaction. But for this one, I'll try to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible in terms of organization, keeping things in order, and just understanding the file as a whole. So let's get into it. Anytime I get a new file, and to me, a new file means I have a fully executed contract. Nothing less than that. If I don't have a contract, I'm not starting, basically. That's basically free labor at that point. If an agent has questions, no problem, I can answer them, but I will not be starting my job until I have a fully executed contract, meaning all parties have signed from page 1 to the end of the page. And once I have that, I can start my process. And basically, I like to have the contract, all of the disclosures and reports together all at once, but that usually isn't the case. So let's say we're working with a purchase contract. Usually I'll get the contract. Let's say we represent the buyers. If an agent is amazing and is considering my time, they will have their buyers sign everything ahead of time, and they will get all the signatures, or at least most of them, signed with the given disclosure packet. And once it gets into contract, I already have the contract and signed disclosures and reports, which would be in a perfect world that happens all the time. But in my world, in our TC world, we know that that is not the case. So usually I'll get a contract and a link to the disclosures, or some PDFs, and it's up to me to figure out a way to get these all signed and to have a complete file within the 37 or the 7-day close of escrow, whatever is said on the contract. So one can just go tagging and get everything done, signed, but how are you able to keep track of what's been given to you? And for me, I like to break down my file into sections, meaning, okay, within my contract section, I know these items are all required. So let me make sure I have all of these within the contract package. And if not, I'll make a note of what's missing so I can get those signed along with the disclosure packet. Now, I've reviewed the contract, so let me move on to my disclosures and reports. So I have a breakdown of the disclosures and reports in its own sections as well. So I like to break the first down section into, so the disclosures is one whole section. And within that section, I like to break it into like property specific disclosures, meaning like the heavy duty stuff, like the questionnaires, transfer disclosure statement, seller property questionnaire, San Francisco seller disclosure. Anything where the seller has had to answer several questions, I like to keep those in its own area because those get referenced the most. And if those are filled out incorrectly or if something's missing, I know to go to that section of my file immediately. And then after that, I break it down into just your standard boilerplate disclosures, advisories, things that require only for our client to only read and sign. There wasn't any questions answered. These are just advisories, like I mentioned. Broker specific disclosures, agreements, things like that. Things that just kind of break down specifics of a home that may or may not apply, but you need to know about them on a local, state, national level. I basically keep these in its own disclosure section. And once those are completed and I go through everything and I sift out what has been signed versus what hasn't, then I move on into my report section. Now, this is where we house any inspections, reports, anything that is more than like 5 or 10 pages for the most part, because this is where it requires a seller to really get to know the property, which is, permits, where permits may be pulled, or compliance certificates, so the buyer can understand and know exactly what is missing before we close escrow. The seller or buyer is going to be responsible for making sure this is complete before we move forward. And the reason I like to keep these all separate, away from property specific or boilerplate, is because, like I said, it's just quicker and easier to access when I know these are in its own section. And I've noticed a lot of brokerages do this same similar layout. I've been doing this since I started. This is how I was trained to do it. If there are other ways you manage your files, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear, because I'm always, just making sure I'm up to date with how things are going, and making sure I'm sharpening my tools all the time, because I'm more than willing to learn new skills and new tips and maybe shortcuts or long cuts on how to run my business. So let me know in the comments how you do it, or maybe you do it the same. Let's figure it out. So in your report section, and the other reason I keep this separate is because the buyer may want to do their own inspection. So it is all in one area for you to find, and it just makes it a lot easier. Even, think about it this way. At the close of escrow, when you're a buyer and you receive a link to a bunch of disclosures, over 50, over 100, thousands of pages of documents, wouldn't you rather receive it in sections and broken up sections, or at least file by file with a name listed on it, versus one PDF where you have to sift through all of that and you're just like, this is a mess. So as a transaction coordinator, you're not just thinking about the file today, but you're also thinking about the user experience down the line, and the impression you may make on a buyer, and they may be like, wow, this file's really organized, who did this? Or maybe I'll refer them to another person that I know. So that's just my logic behind it. There's no real formula to this. Everyone operates different, and that may not ever happen. But also for me, if I get a file that resells later down the line, say the buyer buys 123 Main and they want to resell it 3 months later, and I'm working on that file again, I'm going to want to have everything broken up into sections, or at least renamed properly, so I can easily pull what I need to add to my disclosure packet. You gotta think about this, people. So that's one way I organize the reports. And then of course, if there's an HOA or historical documents, those are its own section as well, because those are completely different items from what I mentioned before. And keeping those in its own section just really helps with knowing where to go when I'm auditing a file, or when I'm wanting to reference something right away. It's just easy and quick, and I don't have to think about it. And of course, when you get a disclosure packet and it's all just one zip form and it's itemized, I don't mind that. I'll do it, do something in alphabetical order. It makes it much easier. Or I'll just create subfolders. Maybe this is more work than I need to actually do, but maybe I'll create subfolders, like I mentioned, with disclosures, contracts, reports, HOA documents, just for my own peace of mind. It's totally up to you how you organize your files, how you stay intact, how you stay mentally sane, because when you're juggling one file, it's a lot. But when you're doing that times 20, times 30, times 100, you're going to need a system to keep you intact and in order, so you can just keep doing this over and over again. And when you do hire an assistant or a teammate or team members, it's a lot easier to transfer that information over to them in sections, versus this is a whole file, figure it out. At least I know how my brain works. I prefer to have everything in sections and broken up and compartmentalized. It's easy for me to comprehend, and of course I can always remix it and add my own touches to it later. But for now, this is what works for me. And if this has helped you in any way, let me know. I'm more than willing to answer any questions and comment below how you organize your files, if you do it this exact way, or if there are other tips and tricks on how to do things, or maybe shortcuts for me to pick up the pace and shorten up my time and create more time for myself. I would love that. So we are a community, and I would love to build and grow together. So with all of that said, your time is worth it. Let's connect. My name is Lillian Hernandez, and this is Transaction Care. Until the next video, see ya.